Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Whoa, that we can't use that, can we? That's the wrong thing. Hang on. Screwed that up. There we go. Okay, now we got to start all over. Started at 45. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first edition of On the Ice Show West. I'm going to be your host, Andrew Greenall, talking sports, ice hockey here in Western Canada. And tonight we have a special guest talking to us from the United States. It is Mr. Greg Moore. He is working at the Lawrence Technology University in Southfield, Michigan as an ACHA Division I female coach. We wanted to talk to him tonight about how COVID, etc., is affecting his ability to be the head coach down there with obvious scouting reasons. They were out up here in Canada looking at players and obviously not playing much hockey. So join us, won't you, for our first show of On the Ice in Western Canada. Greg, thanks for joining us tonight, buddy. How's it going?
Hey, Andy, thanks for having me. It's going well. Going well. Can't complain too much.
How's the weather down there? Is it as beautiful as up here?
It's actually a balmy 44 degrees out here. I should say Fahrenheit. We do Fahrenheit in the United States, so it's a tidbit warm for what it normally is, but we're doing okay. We had our early winter storm early on and dumped about 24 inches of snow on us, so we're doing good so far.
Well, that's good. That's probably keeping you out of trouble.
Yeah.
Just to let our viewers know, unfortunately, I know this man. He's been up here a few times trying to scout some of our Canadian players, which is why we want to talk to him. Greg, how difficult has it been over the last few months to even get any players to, even commit to playing in the U.S.?
It's tough, and there's a few things that have made it very difficult. Obviously, the number one, with the borders being closed, it's tough to get up and make in-person evaluations. And for every coach is a little bit different in how they value in-person evaluations. But I am one that puts a pretty heavy significance in my ability to get in front of a student athlete and watch them play and get to interact with them in person. So in that aspect, it's been very difficult. And then on top of that, with the uncertainty of the financial aspect of what COVID means for not only the U.S. economy, but the Canadian economy and the exchange rate, it's tough to figure out what costs are going to be for Canadian students to come down to the United States, not only for tuition and fees, but travel and living expenses as well. And unfortunately, I wish I could offer student athletes full tuition scholarships to come down and play for me in the U.S., but unfortunately, I'm not in that situation. So it's definitely been a challenge, but it's been a challenge for everybody, no matter where you currently reside.
So obviously, the stress is impacting you guys down there as well, not even just up here. Like, I know a few of our coaches up here are having the issue of trying to still bring up their American players to join the teams, or even from other countries like Australia, Sweden. Is any of that impacting you guys? Have you been able to bring any of the international players in?
So it's kind of a check and see now. I don't have many international players currently, so it hasn't really been a huge effect on me. However, I know a few other Division III and ACHA coaches do have some international students that are having a little bit of trouble. The benefits that they have is for the most part, all of NCAA Division III and majority of ACHA is shut down right now and aren't playing at all. So it hasn't really taken a huge effect. Whereas some of the schools up in the Western Canada and the CSSHL and everything like that are playing games or attempting to play games for however they can get them. That would affect them a little bit more. So it's kind of like it's a bad situation where some of those students aren't being able to be involved with their teams or their programs, but also not many of the teams are playing. So it's not really having a huge effect on the athletic portion, more so the academic and the school portion of things.
Are you finding, because you're not able to have a lot of contact with your team, is it affecting the relationships that would be, there if you guys were on the ice 4 days a week or 5 days a week and training 4 or 5 days a week?
Certainly, but I don't necessarily know if I'd say it affects the relationships, but it certainly takes away from the experience that we try to market so much for our student athletes. Part of being at university or being in a university campus is the experience of getting to interact with some of your closest friends and live with some of your closest friends and be in such intimate quarters with them, where you get to know them on an extremely intimate basis and develop lifelong friendships. Mm-hmm. And that's the part we're really missing. It's not necessarily the team aspect or the team building. Obviously, we'd love to do some of that stuff, but it's more the pure experience for our students to give them that holistic college experience, both academically, socially, and athletically, that I think we're struggling with a little bit. And again, everyone's probably in the same boat when it comes to some of that stuff.
Are you able to do like this type of conference with the team?
Yep.
So sorry, go ahead.
We get to interact occasionally on Zoom or video chats or whatever. But again, I mean, as you are very well aware, the Zoom meetings they're a good substitute, but they don't take the full. Yeah, they're not great.
Yeah, like it's really informal, really. If you think about it, you're just you don't even know if they're really paying attention. Mm-hmm. Has the school aspect affected anything that's going to prolong for these players? Like, you guys play in the ACHA Div 1, so are any of these players going to be impacted by the sudden halt to sport, like for further education wise and further job wise?
They're not forcibly made to change. So our school and the academic portion of that hasn't really altered at all. They're still going to class. In fact, I think earlier this week we decided to go full remote for the remainder of the semester until Christmas, and then come back in the end of, or beginning of January. So they're still going to all their classes. They're still doing all the things that they need to do. The only thing that's really truly been affected by COVID has been their athletic season. Now, some students, or all students, would have the opportunity to come back and play an additional year if they so choose to. But again, if they choose to come back for an additional year, it's an additional year of tuition, it's an additional year of fees. Not all of them are guaranteed their scholarship packages if they come back for a year 5. So it all kind of depends on how things shake out. Now, the nice thing about the ACHA is we do allow postgraduate students to come play for us. So a student can finish their undergraduate degree, their 4-year degree in whatever area of study they want to do, and then come back for their master's degree or their doctorate degree and still be able to play hockey for us. So they have that opportunity to kind of prolong their athletic career and just keep getting more degrees if they choose.
You hit on finances. Do you think, are we going to see all colleges and universities looking at this over like December, January, February, March as typically when the scouting season picks up more and more is March, April? But do you think there's going to be a lot more schools looking at that financial aid and maybe giving away, not giving away, but being able to provide more scholarship funding in some ways so you guys can help grow the programs back?
I think you asked $1 million question, because I think there Now, I'm not an expert in economics. I'm not an expert in finance. So therefore, I don't know the whole answer to that. I think you're going to have some schools that look at that exactly like you said. And if they get the students in the door, they will get their revenue generated by having them on campus, in the dorms, in the meal plans, the other aspects besides the actual academic portion. And then you're going to see some other schools that are going to be really, really tight with their budgets and say, hey, we can't afford to cut our costs anymore. We need these kids in at the maximum amount we can get them to pay for so that we can adjust our budget. So I think you hit on the very economical piece of that I see as more students in the door on campus, the more opportunities for revenue generated. But I don't necessarily know if other universities and schools would see it the same way. But I think that's a smart way to view it. So I'd say yes, but very tentatively.
So you as a coach, basically right now, you can't make any comment on that if there's going to be any guidance coming forward as of yet. But
it's not that I can't make any comments. I have no idea. It's one of those things that it's outside of my realm. So I'm pretty hands off when it comes to financial aid. I'm at a university that's purely academic and merit-based scholarship. So any financial aid packages I can offer come purely from the academic side of things. So therefore, I'm pretty hands off when it comes to the financial aid aspect of that.
So you had mentioned earlier that it's possible that some of the postgraduates can come back. Mm-hmm. Now, that said, how many teams can you see, or I'm asking you to guess, but mm-hmm. do you foresee more of those second postgraduate students coming back to accomplish playing in the sport that they like? Or do you think it's going to be, are we going to cap it, or are they just going to say, again, going back to the money thing, bring in more kids, more money in the coffers? What's your estimate on that?
In my experience, I'd say probably not a ton. In my experience with women's hockey, women want to get on with their life. They like playing hockey, but it's not the end all be all for them when they get to be 22, 23 years old. They see what their next opportunity or their next chapter of their life is. Now that's not all of them. So there is going to be a significant number. And if I'd have to guess, I'd say probably 10 to 15% of this year's graduating seniors, the class of 2021, would entertain the opportunity to come back and play another year and take some postgraduate work and do some of that stuff. Now, the thing to keep in mind is not all leagues and not all conferences honor the opportunity to do that. And especially NCAA Division III, it's very conference specific for if a student can continue their eligibility and finish their eligibility and do a postgraduate work towards a postgraduate degree. So it kind of all depends on the situation and what those students have available to them as well.
Yeah, good points you bring up there. Unfortunately, Greg, we have to pay for our show, so we must have a commercial break. Guys, stick with us. We'll be right back in a few moments with more from Greg Moore, an ACHA Division I coach. Stick with us, won't you? Welcome back, Greg. Thanks for sticking with us. So we were talking about how some of the women may or may not come back, and you did hit on a good point there that a lot, and even as a scout myself, I found that pretty much once they've left college or university, they want to move on, have families, or pursue that career. The college that you're at, obviously heavy into the technology, into that area. Do you see any of, excuse me, can you foresee any of the current players wanting to come back next year based on just this? Like it's almost frustrating, if you will, that you've paid so much money to attend a college or university, or even the CSSHL or the JWHL, or even a private style school. That mom and dad have spent $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 Canadian on. What do you think's going to happen? Like, what do you foresee? Have you gotten feedback from the players yet? Like, what do you?
No, I mean, not really, because I think a lot of it kind of depends on what happens in the spring. There are some schools of thought that NCAA Division III and ACHA might just say, hey, we're just going to just say no to the rest of this year and just kind of put a pause on it and start it fresh in 2021 in the fall. It's such an unknown right now because of that. Now we have the benefit at Lawrence Tech that we offer a lot of different grad programs and postgraduate programs in the areas of study, particular engineering, architecture, and business, so that allow our students to have the opportunity to do that if they want to. So that is a great opportunity for us. But again, like I said, not every school and the university is going to have that opportunity and have the resources to do that. So it kind of all depends on that situation. But at this point, I think it's one of the wildly unknowns that a lot of coaches are dealing with, because they're not exactly sure what their exiting class is going to look like. They don't know if they're going to lose 5 players. They don't know if they're going to lose 4 players. They don't know if they're going to lose 3 players. And then they don't know exactly what they need to bring in their incoming class. And it's making it very difficult to recruit during this time without knowing for sure what's going out the door and what you have coming in. It's one of those great unknowns for the year of 2021 for sure.
How have you even been able to start planning for 2021, 2022? Have you been able to do anything?
Kind of. I mean, it's been very kind of tentatively planning, and this is what we hope is going to happen, but nothing in regards to firm, set in stone kind of deals. Like I haven't even gotten my budget approved for 2021 yet, so it's kind of been one of those. We're planning with a plan to play, but also keeping in our back pocket that we don't know what this is going to look like yet. So,
how frustrated are you that you can't get the kids on the ice? Sorry, I apologize. I didn't call them kids. They're women.
Yeah, they're young women. Yes.
It's got to be frustrating.
It certainly is. It certainly is. Especially, I'm in the unique situation where this is my full-time job. I coach and I don't do anything else. This is what I do. So I spend an entire year out recruiting, looking for players, trying to bring them in, convince them that Lawrence Tech is a great place to be and this is where you want to be. And then, most of them, and I tell them this, to not make their decision based on hockey, but most of them, it's a big impacting factor of choosing to come to Lawrence Tech is the opportunity to play hockey. And when they're on campus, I mean, this is what they played their whole life for, to play at college or university and get an opportunity to play at a high level. And it is extremely difficult and extremely frustrating to know that is on pause right now. And, hopefully we continue to be, I don't want to say proactive. We continue to be positive in hopes that everything's going to turn out the way we want it to be. But I mean, it's very difficult to convince these players that, hey, everything's going to be fine when I don't know. I have no idea what January, February, March is going to look like. And who knows if cases spike, what's going to happen. And, June comes and what if cases haven't calmed down yet? It's going to affect fall of 2021. I mean, nobody has any idea what this looks like in the next 6 to 8 months.
What are you telling your players as the head coach right now? Like, are you, like we mentioned, you're having Zoom calls. Are you like, come on, girls, it's okay. Let's keep up with our training. Are you encouraging them that way? Or are you, obviously you look tired and frustrated, but is it, or is that the turkey? But anyway.
No, I'm only tired because I have a 1-year-old at home. That's the only reason I'm tired. No, I think, yeah, we just keep preaching the message that, hey, just keep staying positive. The benefit of, I shouldn't say the benefit, but at least we're not alone in this. I mean, every school, every university, every program is dealing with these challenges. And it's nice to know it's not just, hey, Lawrence Tech is telling us we can't play right now because they're being overly cautious about what's going on. You know, I mean, it's happening everywhere. So
what feedback are you getting from other coaches? Like, obviously you're talking to them. What are they expressing the same type of frustration you are? Or?
Yes. And, you know, I've been lucky enough where my administration has been pretty transparent in the process. They brought fall sports back to campus this fall and went good 2 months of playing and doing socially distanced competitions without fans, and doing the things that they felt were responsible in order to host athletic competitions. Whereas some other schools, NCAA Division III, weren't even given the opportunity to play fall sports. So their administration shut them down real fast. And the frustration they have is the transparency. They don't feel like some of the administration, some of the higher ups are being overly transparent with the process and why they're doing it. And so I think that's just a case by case situation where some universities are being very transparent with their process and being very honest with their students, and some aren't. And, you know, unfortunately, that's just kind of par for the course in regards to organizations. Some are very honest and some are transparent and some aren't. And you kind of take what you get and hope for the best.
So right now we're going into December. We'd be getting ready to head into Christmas break. Where would you guys be in the rankings right now?
In regards to the season?
Yeah, for the season.
Yeah, we'd be right around the midpoint. Generally speaking, hit or miss. You like to have a 50-50 split if you can going into December. Obviously, with university, we have a pretty long break through the month of December. So going into Christmas, you'd love to see, you know, in between 12 and 15 games in the first half and 12 to 15 games in the second half, and making the even 50-50 split. In my experience, it rarely ever happens that way. And typically you get less games in the first half, and then you overload the second half. So it'd be more like a 10-20 split or 12-18 split, something like that. So yeah, heading into December, right about this time, you know, we'd be right around the midpoint, maybe in between a third and a midpoint of our season. And, you know, depending on how everything goes, we're a pretty young program. So, you know, in terms of rankings, I don't know where we would be ranking, but you know, it's definitely right there. And it's weird to think that we're in the middle of or about to hit the beginning part of December, and, you know, we haven't even played hockey, and the NHL hasn't even stepped on the ice yet. It's just it's an odd place to be in the beginning of December.
I had a question there for you. You brought up the thing of going into the midseason 50-50. Do you think that any of this is going to, because of some teams are still playing, and it seems to be the majority of the minor leagues are playing. You don't really notice a lot of the NCAA or college university. So do you think that any of this is going to affect the ability for coaches to actually get a good read on a prospect going into the 21 season?
I think it depends. And I don't know how familiar. So the NCAA Division I just put a dead period on through the April 1st. So there's no in-person. They're done. There's no in-person evaluations for NCAA Division I this year until the end of April.
I heard too they were hinting towards Div 2 and 3 as well.
I haven't heard anything about Div 2 and Div 3 yet. It's only been a Div 1 to my knowledge. Now, it doesn't surprise me if they kind of trickle that down into Div 2 and Div 3. But at this point, Div 2 and Div 3 are still free reign to my knowledge. Now that has slowed down. I know the state of Michigan just shut down all hockey for the next couple weeks, so they're done until the middle of December. Minnesota just shut down all hockey until the middle of December. So, I mean, some of those schools are being forced to have a dead period regardless if they want to or not. And then some schools, I know for myself at Lawrence Tech, I'm on a travel ban, so I can't travel to go see anybody play or go see any prospects or anything like that outside the state of Michigan for the foreseeable future. So we'll kind of see how that kind of plays out here in the next month or so. But Yes, there certainly does, but also technology has gotten so good, and I think this is one of the most underutilized tools in a prospect's toolbox is the ability for them to shoot video and send it to the coaches. Now, every
Yeah.
coach is a little bit different in how they deal with video and what they like to see on their video, but there's so much video out there that those prospects can still send them to coaches, and coaches can still get their hands on that video to do a proper evaluation and make sure that they have all the things that they need to know. I think the thing you miss out most is that person-to-person interaction, that face-to-face interaction that you get at some of those evaluation events that really sell the student athlete on what kind of student they are, what kind of kid they are, how they interact with their parents, those personality things that you don't get on the phone or on a Zoom or on video. They're kind of X factors. And I think you miss that part. I think in terms of actual hockey skills, there isn't a whole lot that can't be seen on video that you see in person that is missed. Now there's a few things obviously with the intangibles, but I think all that can be made up in the interim. But yeah, there certainly will be things that are missed and forgotten with video that you're going to miss out on in-person recruiting right now for sure.
Hold those thoughts, buddy. Again, got to pay those bills. Got to love them. We'll be right back with some more of Greg Moore. Stick with us, won't you? Welcome back, everybody. I'm your host, Andrew Greenall, sitting alongside with Greg Moore, head coach of the ACHA Division I Lawrence Tech, based out of Michigan. Again, the show is moving forward now with different hosts. I'll be hosting the West, and my counterpart, Ryan, will be hosting out in the East. So we're grateful to have Greg Moore with us tonight, talking to us about how this is affecting not just Canada, but overall North America with hockey. Greg, before we went to break, we were talking about just how it's getting harder and harder to scout the players, but the technology's there, but you're still missing out on that face-to-face, which is, I think, a tremendous thing that sucks, really.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get to know the player before you sign them, and then it also gives the player an opportunity to let loose in front of you as the coach,
Mm-hmm.
and you get to know them. So skill development is definitely something that's important. What would you suggest players are doing right now? Like even up here in Alberta, just so you know, well, actually throughout BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, they pretty much come to a grinding halt.
Mm-hmm.
We had hockey going, and then they went, no, whoa, hold up, everybody take a 2-week break, and then we'll look at this again, mid-December going into January. So what would you say to encourage, not just your current player group, but other players that are out there? What would you say to them? What would you give them to do? What would you say to keep at? Well,
yeah, I think the big thing is just make sure they're staying active. At this point, when you get to the beginning parts of December, you never know what the weather is going to bring. So you never know exactly what you have to deal with. It's very easy when you don't have hockey to keep you occupied to sit on your couch and watch Netflix all day and just kind of binge out. No, kids don't do that. So it's reminding you to be active and find something to do. And the big thing that I tell our students is find one thing that you can accomplish each day. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be to walk around your block. It can be to finish a chapter in a book. Let's find one thing that we can accomplish and check off our list for each day. And I think when you have some kind of attainable goal, to kind of go after and work towards every single day. I think it makes it a little bit easier to kind of deal with some of the obstacles and adversity that we've had to deal with through the fall so far. Other than that, it's, you hope student athletes and especially hockey players are in their garage stick handling or shooting or doing some of that stuff. But obviously everybody's situation is a little bit different. I know for me, when I was growing up, I hated stick handling and I hated shooting in my garage. So I had to find my activities elsewhere, and I think you can. I'm a big fan of playing tennis or racquetball as a hockey player. The quick start and stop motions. Now, you get into the situation where, especially with racquetball, indoor sport, and at many gyms and sports facilities, I don't know if they're open, so that might not be a possibility. But yeah, finding an activity that you can be active with to occupy some time and find something that you can work towards, some sort of goal or aspiration that you can accomplish every day to feel accomplished and get something done.
Now, what would you say to the parents that would be like, well, little Johnny is going mental, and little Johnny or little Susie, if they don't get to play sports, this is the end of the world. Like, what would you, like, obviously as a dad, I'm a dad too, it's hard. Well, your kid's still young, but, sports is one thing, but it's not the be all and end all. But what would you say to those parents that are like, oh my God, little Sally's losing her mind because there's no sports? Like, what would you say to them?
You set me up for this one, didn't you?
No, I'm just asking you a question.
Yeah, we talked. Okay,
this is ask Greg about parents. That's what it says.
No,
buddy.
It's fine. It's good. I'm glad you brought this up because it's one of my biggest pet peeves. Is you look across Twitter and you look across other social media platforms, the number of parents that are screaming about the mental health of their kids if they can't play sports, and this is going to ruin the mental health of my kid. And I look at them and I say, hogwash, this is a great opportunity for you as a parent to get involved in your kid. You can't rely on sports to send them off and be happy. If hockey is the only thing that makes them happy in their life, then you got bigger problems to deal with than just their mental health. That we as parents have to look in and say, okay, how can I be more actively involved in my child's life? How can I help them get through this adversity? And how can I help them get over this challenge? Because it's not the last time they're going to face adversity in their life.
I think you hit it right on the point, to be quite honest with you. Like in any sport, either be hockey, football, baseball, rugby, golf, swimming, skiing. In fact, I remember being a kid, we were out on the streets playing until the street lights came on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was either every Thursday or Friday night was board game night. So there is more to it. And I totally agree with you. I don't disagree. I think that parents now, we're almost using it as a babysitting service, especially for the younger ones, right?
Yeah. And I will say, no, it's not. But it's also not necessarily the parents' fault. Parents are having to work more and more hours these days to support their families and support their child's goals. How many parents do you know that work over 40 hours a week to help pay for hockey? I mean, it's insane.
Two jobs.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. 2 jobs is the norm these days. But it's unfortunate that these parents have to work so much that and to come home and have to kind of be in charge of the mental health of their child is added responsibility for them that used to be taken care of by a sport or by some sort of activity that their child could get involved with.
Stuff has changed over the years.
just a little bit, not a lot,
If you think about it though, back in the day, like we're both almost close in age, but back in the day, it wasn't a trying to think of the right word. Like you didn't have to do it. Whereas now, as parents, little Johnny wants to play sports. Okay, so let's put him in sports. Or little Sally wants to do gymnastics or badminton or tennis or skiing or hockey. Like I've even noticed that more and more as they get older, the spread is getting there where it is almost kind of like, okay, we got Sally in gymnastics tonight. We got Billy in hockey. We got Rebecca in violin. Obviously, as the kids get older, it's more acceptable to kind of drop them off. But even now, we're still dropping them off, and they're 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. Sorry, I just have to throw that in there.
No,
I
and
don't know
I
where I
think
was
just
going with that, but
no, but kind of in the same boat. You know, you look at my family spent the last year in Montana while I was at a school in Montana,
mhm,
and for my kid to play hockey, our closest town to play hockey outside of the town we're located in is 2 hours away. So
yeah,
any game he plays, we are traveling and traveling in excessive amounts for he was 10 at the time to play youth hockey, to play 2 games. Like outside of just the general work restraints and the work commitments that our parents have, what parent has 12 to 16 or 18 hours or an entire weekend to dedicate to youth sports right now? It's insane.
it is. I think it's definitely nuts.
No.
It really is. Like even because as a coach, you now turn into that, that relationship builder,
Mm-hmm.
that psychologist, the sociologist, the coach, the medic,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and more stuff's being entrusted on you guys as coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously not at the college level because you have the
Well,
trainers.
even so, like yeah, it's funny because I used to joke with my assistants. You know, we're almost surrogate dads to a certain extent because
Yeah,
most of the kids we get as true freshmen are first time away from home kids. Like they've never been away from home. Most of the kids in today's age have barely ever been away for summer camp, let alone
yeah,
being away to university, however far away they are, whether it's 2 hours, whether it's 15 minutes, whether it's 12 hours. It doesn't matter. These kids, this is the first they've ever been away from home for a prolonged period of time without mom or dad being with them.
mhm,
So in essence, I mean, we do serve as kind of surrogate parents for them to help them put out their fires that they're not sure how to handle on their own. And as college coach, we take pride in that because it's more than just hockey. We want to be involved and we want to help foster the entire relationship. I pride myself not necessarily on wins and losses that I get, but as wedding invitations I receive later on down the road.
yeah.
I want to make sure that when I coach, it's not necessarily just about hockey. It's about the whole package and making sure these kids are ready for whatever life hands them next. Whether that's good or whether it's bad, that they're prepared for whatever comes.
Good points. You guys do have that. You do turn into that basically. Like having a daughter now playing in Toronto. I've entrusted that coaches. Well, they have 2 coaches out there and a den mom. So it's kind of cool to, I think, as they get into that 14, 15, 16-year-old age
Mm-hmm.
to be able to get away from home and get to experience that before they go to someone like you at college.
Mm-hmm.
At least they already know what's expected. What's going
Mm-hmm.
to. It's yeah, but it sucks though. This
Yep.
damn COVID thing. So, without being on the ice, what have you been doing with yourself? Have you just been working, or have you actually been doing work?
I've been getting some work, but it's definitely the least busy I've ever been through the months of September, October, November in my entire life. I've been coaching hockey for 10 years, and I was joking with my wife earlier a couple weeks ago that she's never seen me home so much throughout these months. Usually I'm gone recruiting, 3 out of 4 months every month, and when I'm not gone recruiting, I'm at practice till 9, 10 o'clock at night, and I'm doing this and this or traveling for games, and I have not seen my wife this much in my entire life. So I'm very thankful. I joked with a colleague of mine that I think I might even go skiing. I haven't gone skiing in like 20 years, so I may have to pull that one out because I'm usually so busy in the winter. I've never had a chance. So, but yeah, no, it's definitely few and far between. I mean, there's definitely work to get done, especially for myself that, we're constantly looking for new players, constantly looking to kind of develop that and a little bit of professional development as well. How can I be a better coach? How can I reach my kids? It's constantly changing and I'm always looking for new ways to be better. So, I mean, there's always a little bit of that, but also I'm not taking this for granted that I don't get much opportunity to be a dad and be a husband very often. So I shouldn't say very often, but the amount of extra free time that I have has been very welcome to help be around my kids a little bit more. I've seen more of my kids' hockey games this year than I've seen in the last 10. So I'm really excited about that. And then just kind of just keep grinding. I mean, that's about all we can do right now.
I'm shocked she hasn't changed the locks on you yet.
I tell her that I'm every day I wake up next to her. I'm really happy you're still here. Thank you.
So, obviously you're finding stuff to do to try to keep yourself out of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
What are you looking what are you looking forward to best hopefully going into January? Are you hoping to get back on the ice?
I think everyone's hoping to get back on the ice. I think that's obviously goal number one is to do that. And I think, this sounds so cliche, and I even hate saying it because I think we've entered our new normal. I don't think at least for the foreseeable future we'll ever go back to what we were experiencing late 2019 or even early in the fall in 2020, where we were kind of freewheeling with some of the travel and some of the things that we had going on. I think it was. I shouldn't say fall 2019 before March, where we were kind of living without restrictions. And I think we're going to be with restrictions for at least the next, 3, 4, 5 years. And hopefully we can find a way to live with them and compete and hopefully get back to some semblance of what this new normal means for us and hopefully find a way to prosper. I mean, that's kind of the big thing, but yeah, hopefully get back on the ice in January and get rolling.
Just off topic here. What do you think about the juniors, the junior hockey being hosted up here in Alberta in Red Deer and in Edmonton? Do you foresee having any issues, or do you just?
Well, first, before we talk about the men's World Juniors, we have to talk about why they canceled the women's World Juniors. Without canceling the boys' World Juniors. That really.
I'm glad you brought that up, buddy.
That really grinds me the wrong way of why the men can compete but the women can't. And I'm sure it's pretty strictly a monetary aspect that the men's World Juniors probably brings in a little bit more money. But how that hasn't been a bigger deal is beyond me. Is there going to be some problem? Yes, there will be. I mean, you look at all the major professional sports leagues across the country. Now, the one benefit that they will have at some point is they will get to a bubble-like atmosphere in Red Deer and Edmonton that hopefully will kind of limit some of those potential exposures. I mean, you look at the NHL and the NBA, how successful they were with their bubbles in Orlando and in Toronto. I mean, we worked out really, really well for both.
Edmonton, buddy.
What's up?
Edmonton had the best bubble.
Edmonton, they both were very successful. Okay, fair enough. I'll give my shout out to Alberta and Western Canada. So, I mean, I think that's the one benefit that they will have with the World Juniors up in Edmonton and Red Deer is having that bubble-like atmosphere. Now, the question, I know Hockey Canada World Junior team just went into a 14-day quarantine because they had somebody test positive. So, is that going to happen up to the point of the tournament? There's no doubt. There's no doubt that will happen. I hope that some of those teams and programs have, those. I'll call them kids. I know. Young men know that they're there for a reason. They know they're there to play hockey, and they know they're there for a gold medal or to compete at a high level. So I don't think you have to worry about necessarily stepping out of line, going out of quarantine, or going out of routine or anything like that. But there's no doubt there's always risk up until the point you get them into a bubble-like atmosphere where you can control every movement they have. So so you fingers crossed that it'll go smoothly, but you never know.
Greg, hold those thoughts. We got to hit another commercial break. Somebody's got to pay for this. I'm certainly not, so we're going to have to do one. When we come back, we're going to hit on something that Greg just brought up that's very important, and I think that it's dear to a lot of hearts. So we're going to talk about that when we come back. Stick with us, won't you?
At Super 8 Winnipeg West, we have your comfort in mind with free Wi-Fi and free daily Superstart breakfast. We also have guest laundry facilities, a state-of-the-art fitness center, and a jetted hot tub. Sleep well in a spacious guest room equipped with plush new bedding, a 50-inch flat-screen HD TV, microwave, mini refrigerator, and Keurig coffee maker. Or book a suite with a kitchen, ideal for extended stays. Super 8, Winnipeg West, located just inside the perimeter on Portage Avenue.
Welcome back, everybody, to On the Ice. Tonight's guest is Greg Moore. Although he's based out of the U.S., he still does cheer for some of the teams up here in Canada. Greg, you hit on a good point just before the break about the juniors and how they canceled the women's side of it. Having a daughter myself in hockey, I was pretty upset about that. And you being a female coach, how many of these players do you think that's going to impact by not having that air, or they're not even playing it? How do you think this is going to impact female hockey across North America?
Well, unfortunately, Andy, not a lot, and there's a bunch of reasons why. And the number one is the accessibility of that stream. Like you said, they televise the men's World Juniors on TSN, NHL Network, all the major networks. It's on TV. For the women's World Juniors, there's nothing. You have to pay for the stream on the USA Hockey or the Hockey Canada website to get it, and that's a travesty in and of itself. First of all, to not have an easily accessible stream to a international women's hockey game is just an absolute travesty. So that's number one. And then why I say it's not a lot is because of that accessibility factor. Now, there are going to be hardcore advocates, people that follow the international game pretty extensively, like myself, like other college coaches that are, and other advocates of women's hockey across the country and across the globe that are pretty upset with the IIHF's decision to cancel the women's. I know it's the U18. It's not the World Juniors, but it's the U18 tournament and the U20 tournament for women, while still having the men's World Junior Classic. And
obviously, we both watched a lot of women's games. To be quite honest with you, I find the women's game more chippy and more aggressive than the boys' games. The boys just seem to come out. Please, if anyone's watching the show, please don't get me wrong. I enjoy watching both the male and female sport. But I just think the girls kick more butt. They seem to have more grit. And it is really disappointing that some of these young women that were scouted don't have that opportunity this year to actually participate. And it's yeah.
I think it all depends on the team. You know, the one thing that I've noticed in the men's game especially, it's becoming very, very systems based.
Yeah.
There isn't a whole lot of, I shouldn't say a whole lot, because there is definitely read and react in the game itself. And you know, you look at, you know, you can go watch top plays on Sportsnet or ESPN and go see a great read and react individual style play every night. Like they do happen, but the majority of the men's game right now is so system based that, you know, you play a 1-2-2 or a 1-3-1 or something through the neutral zone. And if this happens, then this person goes there. If this happens, this person goes here. There isn't the freewheeling aspect of the game as much as it used to be. And I think that's where the women's game is at, that the women's game is a little less systems based. I mean, there still is some basic, I don't even want to say basics. There's advanced systems in the women's game as well, but there's a lot more mistakes made in the women's game. So therefore, there's much more read and react that happens, and much more thinking on your toes. And that's why I think you see a little bit more grit and a little bit more, I don't want to say sandpaper-esque in the women's game, because of the fact that there's a little bit more read and react, that those players have to react more to the play at hand rather than basically what the system said it was.
I totally agree. I don't disagree with you at all. Just watching it, the system plays that the male program illustrates versus the female program where it is the read and react. It definitely, I don't know, just upsets me that it's not going to be going on this year. Next thing I wanted to ask you here, the Worlds, the IHHF, the Olympics, what do you foresee what do you, as a college coach, not really going to excite you that much, but what do you foresee? Do you think it's going to happen? Japan and Korea and all those guys are like, oh yeah, it's going ahead. But what do you think?
Well, first of all, I'll go out on a major limb and say if the winter 2022 games do happen, I foresee a U.S.-Canada gold medal game, but that's beside that. Huge limb there. I think it's all going to hinge on the Summer Olympic Games this 2021 in Tokyo. I think if the International Olympic Federation can find a way to get it done and get it done safely, I think the Olympics is going to be very, very similar to some of the bubbles that you saw in NHL and NBA, where you can kind of control those movements and control the inflow outflow a little bit. So I think
Do you
you
think
have
there's
that.
going to be spectators?
No, I do not. I do not. I think we're seeing a part right now where it's, especially with so many international competitors coming from all over the world, you're asking for a global travesty if something happens at the Olympics and you continue to spread more worldwide than it already is. So I don't think there are spectators at the Olympics. I think the nice thing the Olympic Committee has and the IOC and whoever else is in charge is I would have to think their revenue they generate from ticket sales is vastly minimal compared to TV rights, advertising, and all the other aspects that go into it. So I don't think they're going to lose a whole lot of revenue in ticket sales. So I think that at least they have that going for them. But in that aspect, I'm still not 100% sure the Olympics happens in the summer of 2021. I think if the Olympics do happen, I think you're going to see some countries pull out and choose to I don't want to say boycott, because I don't think boycott's the right word, but just choose not to attend this year because of the possibility of COVID. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, what do you think about spectators eventually, or possibly even coming back to any sport like football, hockey? Like, do you think we're going to see moving in? Like, I don't even think we're going to have an NHL come back as quickly as I think they want it to. I don't think we're going to have fans in the stands in any enclosed arena.
I think we'll have NHL hockey. I don't necessarily know if we're going to have fans or not, but I think they've shown that both the players and the league and the owners want to have a season. I think it's all going to come down. I know their big sticking point right now is the owners want deferred salaries and the players don't want to deal it. But obviously this is an NHL show. We can talk more about that later. I would like to see. I think we can get fans back in the stands. I think the biggest thing that we as citizens, global citizens, I will say, is we have to do a better job of adhering to certain guidelines and listen to certain experts and stop getting on Twitter and stop listening to all those armchair experts that are out there that really don't have a degree or know what they're talking about. And I think if we can do things, I'm a huge proponent that, I think with social distancing, with masks, we can get back to a semblance of normalcy with not only with our athletics, but just our society in general. I don't think there's any reason that we can't, and just follow protocols and adhere to guidelines, and I think we'll be okay.
What do you think about the college aspect? Do you think we're going to be able to get back in the stands for the college aspect, or do you think they're going to be more hesitant to allow the students, because mostly it's students that watch those games in the stand, cheer on their friends, etc. Do you think it all to that point?
I think it all depends on where those venues are located. I think you look at, I'll use hockey as a prime example. The number of universities and colleges that have ice arenas on campus are pretty small compared to the ones that don't. So I think you're more likely to see fans on those, and maybe limited fans, like you said, if students only, or students and parents, in terms of general fans in the community. I don't think they're going to be as apt to, but it's just less controlled. I do think they have an opportunity to bring fans back. Will they do it at the college level? I'm not exactly sure. I think some sports they might. You look at NCAA Division I football, a huge moneymaker, and they see it 100,000 people in those stadiums. You can generate a lot of revenue from 100,000 people in those stadiums. So I think the big thing comes down to, can we do it safely? Can we do it effectively? And can we make enough money to do it properly? Obviously we're all driven by the MID dollar, whether it's Canadian dollar or US dollar, that it has to be fiscally responsible for everyone to do it, and obviously not putting anybody else in extreme danger or enhanced danger from having to do it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I personally, I would love to see us all being able to get back to watching any sport, especially being a scout and being able to report back to you guys as coaches and go, hey, we saw this new phenomenon, got to follow it. but it's been really hard even being a dad. We haven't been allowed to go to any. I'm assuming it's probably similar down there where it's typically the kid gets dressed, goes into the arena, only one parent, mom or dad or grandpa or grandma can go in and watch the game, and you still have the social distancing.
Yeah. We've been lucky that it's been two family members per player. So both my wife and I have been able to go. But yeah, I mean, we're flirting with that line where they've been talking about limiting it to 1 or 0. So hopefully we don't get there, but you never know.
Yeah, it's true. Mr. Moore, sir, I appreciate your time. Thanks for being with us tonight.
My pleasure, Andy.
I hope you stay safe and healthy, and I hope to see you guys back on the ice soon. It's always a tragedy when sports seems to get a microscope on it, and then everybody's like, "Oh, no sports, they're dying."
Yeah.
It's not a laughing matter that anyone is passing away, but it's sad that we have to restrict certain things in order to keep our lives moving forward.
Yep.
Well, great. Thanks very much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it, buddy.
My pleasure.
Stick with us. Guys, thanks very much for joining us for our first show of On the Ice. My name is Andrew Greenall. I'll be the host out here in the West. Hope you tune in next week to see more of what I can bring you. Going to be talking to a lot of sports people about hockey. Can't wait for that. Take care, everyone. Good night.